Welcome to another episode of the Fertility Workshop. My name's Marcus, and here today I am with my lovely wife, Eva.
Hello, guys.
So the goal of this episode is going to be on the process, the biological processes, etc. And we're going to be looking at mental health. And that's why I've brought Eva in today to talk to me about my challenges and trials through IVF. And of course, we'll be doing another episode whereby we can learn what is important to the woman during this process as well. But for now, we'll just be focusing on men's mental health. So let's begin. You have obviously prepared a few questions today, and yeah, we'll go through them.
So, before we start, I first want to say that obviously I'm a woman. I can't actually bring questions that a man would ask. I brought questions that I felt that I would like to understand him better. So, it might end up more like giving you more of an idea of what your partner, a woman, might think or might wonder or want to know. So I don't know. I hope these questions are useful for both sides, I guess.
And it's going to be valuable because these are also things that we can share, with our wives that you're going to highlight. What are you asking? What are you concerned about for the man? And what do you want to have communicated to you, etc. So there's a lot of value there. And also a big plus about you asking me questions is that a lot of things might come out that, I haven't even thought about. So I'm a little bit, there's a bit of trepidation there. I don't know what's going to come out, but let's see. So why don't you fire away?
I want to first say a disclaimer that I'm sorry if I put you on the spot.
Okay. All right.
But some questions might be a little bit harder. Actually, the questions I originally wrote, ChatGPT was like, okay, they're very heavy and he might feel attacked. So I asked her to rephrase them in a more gentle way. So thank ChatGPT for that.
God. Okay.
Okay, so my first question is, if we go back to the beginning of our relationship, I think a lot of women do this at some point, which is wanting to know what the man wants, what are the plans. But when early in our relationship, I asked about the future and having a family, how did those questions land for you at that time? Did you experience them as pressure, curiosity, something to think about later, or something else entirely?
So I think it's probably important to clarify that there is an age gap between us. So you are 3.5 years older than myself. When we started dating, you were 29 and I was then about 26. I mentioned that because at different life stages, we are ready for different things. But your question was, how did I feel about the questions you asked regarding when did I want to have family, etc. So I remember we spoke quite a lot about it. There was a number of different concepts that kind of came into all of it. But I knew I wanted to have a family. I remember you were keen to talk about when, not just if. And for me, when you were asking the questions, I was thinking, yeah, in the future, that's not a right now. Because of course we were, these discussions happened over the course of the first year. And after, of course, as well, but within the first year. So it wasn't just, of course, one conversation, it was one ongoing conversation. And I was thinking, yep, it's a future endeavor because we were in China at the time. We didn't have any stability in terms of where we were. I knew I didn't want to stay in China. And there were a lot of questions about where would we go, where would we live. And so I was very much, okay, it's a future issue. That is something that I want to do. We spoke about adoption. We spoke about how I was happy to do that in certain scenarios, very happy to do that. And we did also have to have conversations about fertility because you got certain results back from a doctor's appointment in China. I believe I made clear that it was more important to be with someone I loved for the future, you, than the family, and that we could adopt or look at different options and scenarios anyway. So, does that answer your question? Is there any part of your question that I'm missing?
I'm not quite sure for men. When do men start thinking about having a family, or if it's just like, yeah, it's a future thing and you just park it? But for a woman, because we're very aware of the TikTok, we at some point we have to choose, okay, this is the man I want to create a family with. Even though it's not now, it will be in a few years. Obviously, I was 29. I was like, in a few years is not long from now. So I need to know where this is going. But as a man, do men take it serious? Is that something that you started thinking about becoming a father more seriously from that point? Or at that point, you still didn't take it serious? My understanding is that no, you didn't take it serious. It was just like, yeah, I want to do it in the future. I don't mind and whatnot. But not necessarily taking it as a serious conversation, I guess.
So I definitely had a blueprint, which was marriage first, then children. That was one particular thing. And I know that at that point, the age of 26, I hadn't spoken about to any partner about children or anything like that. So these first conversations were me opening up to the idea of family in the future, potentially immediate. So when I say immediate, I don't quite mean immediate. I mean like 2 years, in 2 years' time. And I also had certain things in my mind, such as, I should be with my partner for a couple of years to know that we are gonna last. We're right for each other. We're there. We can be good parents together. All these considerations. So yeah, there was, okay, this is a future endeavor, but at the same time, I thought of us first, us going through certain steps, trials, and wanting us to overcome those first before looking at family, which to me was a longer journey. A quick note before we continue. This episode is sponsored by the Supplement Blueprints, a free training we created for men who want to improve sperm health and stop guessing with supplements. We break down what works and what actually matters for male fertility, forms, dosages, timing, and the label tricks most brands use to look premium while under-delivering. If you want to join the free session, just go to thefertilityproject.life/blueprints. That's thefertilityproject.life/blueprints.
So looking back to that time, do you feel that all the questions was fast-paced, or it felt normal? How did it feel for you?
I felt they were interesting questions because no one was asking me them at the time. So it was interesting to go through that thought process and get the answers out from myself, because there were new answers for me as well, not just for you. So when you asked me about adoption, I was like, oh, that's an interesting kind of response I had about that. I didn't think I was so into it. Yeah, for want of a better word. So I didn't actually think, I didn't feel like it was too rushed. I think it felt like you were serious about us, about what's going on in the future. And upon reflection now, I think it was really good that you were asking those questions early, because it not only shaped intention and direction of our relationship, but as I said, got me thinking about what I want in the future. I didn't feel pressured, and I think it was quite appropriate. Yeah, I think it was quite appropriate. And I completely understand you asking me those questions. You're 29, I was 26. Got to ask those questions. Yeah. So, yeah. And again, the purpose of this question is to allow men to talk and connect with their wives, because they're going to have these thoughts in the back of their head. Is that why? Right. Okay. These are unanswered questions. Is that the reason?
No, I guess it depends on the age of the couple. If it's a young couple, it is a pertinent conversation and an important conversation to have in the beginning of the relationship, because it's important for us to define what's our expectation for the future. I've met women that had gotten married and then they discovered that the man did not want to have children and is a deal breaker, and then they're like, no, we're divorcing. So this is a very important conversation to have in the beginning. And I know not all women will have these conversations, but it's an important conversation for both sides, because then you know what's a deal breaker or what's not, right? And at the time I asked you about adoption because I had met someone that the idea of adoption was quite an offense. And I was like, why would someone have such a reaction to adoption? So yeah, I think it's very important to be able to share these ideas in the beginning to know what the other side believes. And I think for other couples, either they're young and it's important for them to have that conversation and start thinking of family planning is a long-term plan. And if it's an older couple, it might help some people heal in terms of blaming each other or things like that. So I thought it's an important throwback type of question, depending on where the couple is and their age and situation, because it can help the couple start the conversation. Back then, how was it? Or is this a conversation we should be having?
I guess for me, I'm a little bit confused because we're already talking to, or rather, people listening to this podcast will be the ones who are thinking, okay, I want to have a kid. I'm trying to have a kid. I'm trying to learn about my anatomy, how to improve my fertility as a man in order to have a family. So I want to ask, why is this conversation we're having now valuable to them and their partner?
As a woman, and myself included, I delayed when I wanted to start trying. Whilst I made a conscious decision and I was, okay, I'm making the decision to delay when we're starting to try because I want to give this relationship a chance. But at the point that the man is not taking it serious, the woman has to make a decision. Am I staying here and waiting? Or am I breaking? Or am breaking up? Or am I giving an ultimatum? So I 100% made the decision knowing the risks. But if I didn't, I could very easily blame all the delays we had on trying to conceive on us not starting earlier, for example. But it was a conscious decision I made knowing that there was a huge risk that we might just start very late and it might not happen.
I don't know if that answers my question though.
Okay, what's your question?
Okay, let me rephrase the question. What do men who are already wanting to conceive, what do they take away from this question?
Okay, if it's a man that's already trying to conceive with a partner, it is important to do some shadow work as a couple so you can do the journey together as a strong couple. Shadow work is you going inside and dealing with guilt, regrets, monsters, demons you carry inside of you, and you just ignore it all the time. And as a couple, it's important to go back and be like, do I blame this person? Do I regret my decision back then? And making peace with whatever decision was made. So as a couple, it will strengthen the relationship. And forgiving each other for whatever decision was made in the past is an important part of this journey. I've met couples that they didn't succeed with IVF and then divorced. So it's more than just trying to conceive. It's like as a couple having a strong, loving relationship, which includes making peace with our past decisions. Because I could go back and be like, you know what, maybe I should have given you an ultimatum. Maybe I shouldn't just make peace with my choice of waiting, and maybe I should have pushed you further, you see? So these are decisions that we make in the beginning, and we have to live with them when we go through years of IVF. Because whilst there are illnesses, there are aging, there are all these things happening, most people are more fertile the younger they are. The older you are, the harder it's going to be. And making peace with all the decisions we made in the past is important for a strong relationship that we can go through the process together with love and kindness and being able to accept whatever turns out to be.
I think it is an important point also because a lot of men having poorer fertility, they will be aging. And these issues could be coming about, these fertility issues could be coming about because people are aging and they might have been putting things off for financial reasons, wanting to feel settled, to feel feel safe in their own relationship, all of that. So I think it is an important question. And you're right, because you did have to do some work, because you say that you did make a decision all those years back, right? But there was some resentment about me not wanting to get started sooner. So I dare say a lot of people who are having fertility issues, who are aging, have put things off. So perhaps for that reason, just for that reason alone, it's very important. But I've got a question for you. What about the other way around? When women aren't ready, for men who wanted to get started earlier and their wives weren't ready to have a child, they might be frustrated. They might feel like, I told you, we needed to start it earlier. And now I'm having to pay through my nose for IVF for however long, doing these tests, having you go through all these hormone changes. It's a very trying time. And you're right, a lot of people do end up with divorce. It doesn't even have to be divorce during the IVF process if they haven't succeeded. Even if they succeed, certain tolls have already been accumulated and very difficult, so they can divorce after. So what would you say, if we flip the coin, what would you say to those men in terms of what's worked for you? Because you're much more knowledgeable about that kind of area than me. I haven't looked into forgiveness and overcoming certain emotions as much as yourself.
That's a very tricky question, but in a way, they end up being the same, because it's about the resentment that we can hold towards our partner for something that didn't happen, right? And I don't think there's any right answer, because whatever the person decides is the right answer. But I would say the first step is definitely the acknowledgement that there is resentment there. Ignoring it is the worst way around, because the resentment will, if we think of the resentment as a poison that you put in a glass of water, the more resentment poison you keep putting in the water, eventually the water is more poison than anything. So resentment will start seeping into other areas of the relationship and life. So I don't think it's worth bearing the resentment or ignoring it. It's better off facing the resentment and being like, what's important for me? How much do I love this person? Am I able to forgive? How can I forgive them? Forgiveness is not something easy, and there's different levels to it. One is forgiving someone because of yourself, because you don't want that resentment inside of you and makes you feel worse. But also forgiveness is not exactly how we learned when we were a kid, or a religious aspect of thing that we're superior to the other person and we're giving them forgiveness. That's not the way to go. And unfortunately, we can't always understand the decision the other person does take in their life. But it's in part being like, forgiveness, the biggest one is letting go. And letting go is something that we just have to work within ourselves. And the first thing is like, yes, there is resentment. I blame this person. This makes me angry. Accepting that negative emotion and being like, yes, I feel this. And then asking, how can I let it go? Can I actually let it go? Sometimes it's not possible. It depends on the relationship. What was the issue? And the person might have questions why she wasn't ready. Why would be those reasons? And can be anything. It could be that she was like, we don't have the right financial situation. I think that's very common for men and women as a decision. We're not ready. Or maybe you're like, I don't know, my career is more important right now. There's all these things. What is important? And if having a child is a priority in someone's life, they have to be able to be like, no, this is more important for me than career or anything. So this is not something I want to sacrifice. So it depends on the values, I guess. I don't know what do you think about it?
I think the concept of being able to let go of certain things and forgive yourself for certain things is important, because I'll take one example, which is that it was my decision to not try to conceive earlier. And I don't know if we would have been successful. I don't believe we were trying very hard throughout our relationship in order to stop conception. So one avenue of thought I had was, okay, well, I won't try very hard not to conceive. And if it happens, it's going to happen. So that's interesting because I was already somewhat accepting of conceiving anyway. It's just that I didn't want to try too hard towards that goal. So I was obviously warming up to it. But going back to self-forgiveness, in hindsight, it's clear that we should have tried to start earlier. If you look at the maths, right? Was I ready? No, I don't think I was ready. That's obviously why I was saying I don't want to start right now. But looking back to where I was then, I know that I wasn't ready. So if I had just done it for, what's the word I'm looking for? Schedule, I don't know, then that would have been wrong anyway. But I don't think I would have been as good a father as I would have been back, say, certainly not a couple of years ago. Obviously, we were trying to conceive before a couple of years ago, but 4 years ago, 5 years ago, etc. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, quite a heavy start, huh? Quite a heavy start. So let's see what the next one is. I'm going to be in the hot seat here, guys. So, bear with me if I don't give out all these rapid, sexy responses, Hollywood style.
I told you that even ChatGPT said they were heavy. But I think they're important things to discuss because when we talk about mental health, regret, resentment, guilt, anger, those are all part of it. Yeah. And it's also based on what happens in the past. It's us dwelling on what happened in the past. But before my next question, I do want to say that it's true. We weren't trying hard not to get pregnant, but we weren't doing the right things to make it possible to get pregnant. So for some couple, what we were doing probably was enough for them to get pregnant. So it might be that even if we started earlier, we'd still be in the same path. So there's that.
A quick reminder, if supplements still feel confusing or you're not sure what actually matters, the free supplement blueprint walks you through it step by step. It helps you understand what works, what doesn't, and where to focus so you're not wasting time or money. You'll find it at thefertilityproject.life/blueprints.
My question is in part related to that, which is, how did it feel for you when external factors, doctors, tests, timelines, effectively pushed us into starting the fertility journey? Because whilst I did say I wanted to start at a certain age, I think we were pushed to start it more because of the doctor's appointment. Otherwise, we might have waited for longer. So my endometriosis, I have endometriosis, as I don't know if you mentioned on your podcast, but my endometriosis was getting worse. I was getting way more pain, in a lot of pain and suffering a lot. And then I had the endometriosis appointment. And at the endometriosis appointment, the doctor wanted to send me to surgery, which I was like, no, I have questions regarding surgery and fertility. I don't think, And we had that horrible experience with that doctor. Okay. Then we were sent back to the GP and then to go back to the fertility doctor. And that's when we tested for fertility and we started discussing it more seriously. And we were then forced on to okay, we are already on the path of trying to conceive, even though we were just jumped onto it out of a question, which is I don't think I want the endometriosis surgery because we still want to have kids.
Yes, that's a really good question. And I would say that, that definitely hit some major alarm bells when we had that first appointment. And of course, I recall that appointment very well because the doctor was just basically hostile as soon as you started asking some questions because you've done your own research. So I was 100% glad I was there for that appointment. I'm getting confused between stuff. For that appointment because he was... he just shouldn't have been a doctor, in my opinion. So that definitely hit home on how serious fertility issues were. And that's when we started to really target ovulation windows and things like that. Maybe a bit before then. I can't recall actually. It was, a wake-up call because I knew that you had endometriosis, but I really didn't know enough about it. And you had been diagnosed prior to that appointment. And I didn't really know what was going on and the full implications and just even the fundamentals of the disease. I don't know why I couldn't process that information, because it's quite simple. It's just that I don't think I ever had the concise definition explained to me like I needed, but I digress. That was the time that we started conceiving, and I think it was a trigger was the appointment. But at the same time, I think it was kind of like the right time anyway. There was, and something like that is really important because it wipes away all the excuses as well that are just bullshit anyway. Oh, I haven't got enough money. I don't have a big enough house. All that stuff is temporary. You can get that stuff. You can't get your time back. So yeah, that's my full answer.
So obviously for me, I hadn't started all the ovulation test kits and everything because I was like, okay, I had told you that I wanted to have our child by the age of 34. So I was like, okay, I was 32 at that point. I was like, next year we're starting to try to conceive. So we were, and I had already made it very clear that it was going to be then. And obviously the appointments just expedited like maybe 6 months to a year within our plan. So yeah, so it was already in our radar, I think. But do you think that if we didn't have, even though I say I had the plan to start the year after, do you think without those appointments, you would probably still not take it serious? Or, because let's face it, natural trying to conceive is not nice, like running, like this is ovulation, we have to do it now. You seem not to like that. And in the beginning, you didn't want supplements. It was just like a torture for you. So if we didn't have those appointments, would you have gone with me with the like, let's start?
First of all, I was very happy with the timeline that you set out, which is like, it's got to happen. I want to have my first baby at 34. And I thought that was a smart thing to do. I was aware you had endometriosis and other issues. So we didn't want to prolong it too far. 34 sounded very reasonable to me. And the reason why it sounded reasonable was a couple of things. My oldest brother was born when my mum was 30. And so 30, around about that time, seemed like a very possible and also intelligent time to have children. And it was just a connection I made, just my blueprint in life. People should have kids around 30. And the other reason why I thought it was okay to have kids at 34 was because for some reason, whether it's media or people around you, having kids older and older seems to be accepted as not really a problem, normal. And I don't think that's true. I think there's a big economic stressor that encourages people to hold off longer, have kids, then they have them. And I believe more fertility issues can come up because people are trying to have kids later. And even, the speed of which they conceive is slower, all that kind of stuff. We know that time affects both men and women. There was a second point to your question. The idea that, that where you have to, okay, I'm ovulating, we need to do it. And you said, for you, it seemed like some kind of torture thing. That's because, and again, I talk to men and women actually about this, which is that you can't create a negative state or negative dynamics and then decide you guys got to have sex. You know what I mean? It does. You've got to prioritize the ovulation window, sure, but it should be something that's led up to, and things should be arranged, like certain new things that you try, and make it like a fun adventure rather than a scheduled, automated, taken for granted kind of, oh, I'm ovulated now, and then, yep, go ahead and do everything. And then for me, I was like, oh, this is like work, like this isn't fun at all. So I 100% encourage people to pursue fun within their relationships and when they're trying to conceive. So yeah, with that being said, I guess that's my full answer. Quick pause before we continue. This episode is also supported by a free session we're running called Sperm Analysis Mastery: How to Read Your Results Properly. In this session, I walk you through my own semen analysis reports, the real numbers, real changes, and explain what each marker actually means. The volume, concentration, motility, morphology, liquefaction, and what clinics often don't explain. Most men are told they're normal or borderline without ever being taught how to interpret the report, how to track improvement over time, or what the numbers actually mean. If you want to understand your results instead of guessing, you can join the free session at thefertilityproject.life/free resources. That's thefertilityproject.life/free resources.
So obviously, whilst we were waiting for the surgery, we started trying to conceive naturally. And I guess you answered the question that I was going to ask about how you felt.
So we did try to, very much in earnest, taking into account all the science, etc., try to conceive, target ovulation windows, etc., leading up to that surgery. But there was an overcast of negativity, anxiety, which made the process less fun. And it was like we're trying to beat this deadline where there's going to be this life-altering surgery, and you're kind of doing it out of fear almost. You know, like you want it to work because you're fearful of, if it doesn't work, what's going to happen, which of course is the surgery. So that wasn't pleasant at all. Yeah. And that definitely took a toll on how much I was enjoying sex at the time.
Okay, so it leads up to my next question, which is, what was your internal reaction when we were told IVF was the next step? What thoughts or fears came up that you didn't necessarily say out loud when you're like, oh, we have to do IVF, there's no other way? How did you receive that?
You know, I was such a bimbo back then. You know, I would describe myself as a bimbo because I would go ahead of doctor's appointments and I would trust that they knew best. And I would trust that even after a couple of bad experiences with doctors, trust that they had some kind of plan. And my immediate reactions was, okay, stay calm. I don't need to panic. There are solutions in place. There's options with the NHS, so it won't be too costly for us, the National Health Service in the UK, which, spoiler alert, we weren't successful in getting any kind of treatment from them. And there was a process to follow, you know, so I didn't panic, which is funny because even though there was a plan in place, it was a plan to disaster, but I didn't panic because there was a plan, you know. And real considerations, I think, started happening after we got rejected by them the first time. And then we had to think about, okay, what are we going to do? That's when a lot more emotions came up because I wisened up to the fact that not everything was going to be okay. The doctors didn't have a plan or didn't have our best interests in their hearts. They had budgets, targets, etc. So, you know, none of them were our friend, and only we can know what's best for us at the end of the day as well, right? So my immediate reaction was sort of delayed. Like the immediate reaction was like, it's okay, there's a plan in place, we're going to be fine. I'm going to be not too emotional for both of our sakes, etc. And then, and I was fairly shut down around about that time anyway, because of a lot of different things going on. So I was just trying to contain, everything. And then after I wisened up, then I was like, the emotions that came up was anxiety about, I thought it was possible through IVF, but I was worried about the cost, how are we going to pay for it? And I felt like I was going in blind to that process. So I had that fear of the unknown, which was massive. And I was definitely a passenger along that earlier process, rather than now I feel more in the driver's seat about decisions that's best for us, etc. So there was an evolution of reactions, thoughts, emotions.
In a way, I feel that going through NHS puts you onto that seat of just being a passenger seat and they do whatever they want. Because I think there's more of this reliance like, oh, we just have to book the next appointment. We just have to turn up to the next appointment. Everything will be okay. And obviously then I had the 2 surgeries, had Zoladex to shut down my hormones. And after that, my numbers plummet, AMH plummeted, right? And when it plummeted, then the doctor, which didn't even know our names, were like, okay, your only option is donor eggs. And when the doctors told us about donor eggs might be the only path forward, how did you process that emotionally? Not just like logically, but how was it for you?
Again, I was very naive because I was thinking they've done their best for us. I was thinking other options have been exhausted. These are the professionals and experts. When actually I just felt like that hospital was run like a zoo and they were all headless chickens. But my first initial reaction was, wow, okay, there is no way forward. And I had trouble transitioning to that mindset. And after we had quite a few conversations about donor eggs, and a thought that kept coming to the forefront, which is that if I can't have a child with you and your egg, then why would I bother with a donor? I would just adopt. My view has changed on that since then, but that was my initial reaction. And yeah, I remember feeling fear, and I did withdraw even more into myself at that point, because I did feel a bit defeated. I felt a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they led us down the path a bit as well, like the path of, oh, everything's going to be okay. It wasn't. They should have been more open about that. They were far too optimistic. And then when we got the results back and they said, oh, you're not fertile enough to go through IVF with the NHS, I just felt stabbed in the back. And the fact that your fertility had decreased because of these surgeries that they had done. Yeah. So I still hold anger about that. And I have come on I have realized certain things. So I'm not entirely negative about everything that happened. But yeah, I felt kind of a little bit betrayed. And the problem was I was just too naive. I didn't know enough about fertility treatment in the industry. And I think that's when I started having a bit of a fire in my stomach as well about we're going to have to do something.
So my next question, I think you kind of touched upon it, which is related to this one, is did the idea of donor eggs and then you're like, oh, we might as well just adopt. Then in terms of your identity, your idea of what's a family, your idea of parenthood, how was it impacted by the possibility, what the doctors were saying? Because at this point, obviously the doctors are just saying, yeah, it's just not possible. It has to be donor eggs. But you were like, okay, they led us to the wrong path. The fertility has decreased. But in terms of your idea of what's a family, what's a father and everything, how did it work for you?
My vision of the future still stayed the same, actually. I still knew that I wanted and was going to have 2 or 3 children. How we got there, that was a different story. There was the conversation about donor eggs. That thought process has changed over a period of time. But at the same time, we also have embryos. So I don't want to digress. I'll stay on track. So as I said, adoption was also possible. So my vision of the future didn't change. It always remained the same, actually, which is why I think it's been possible to do this IVF journey. Because if I had entertained the idea that, okay, we won't have children, then yeah, none of this would have happened. So yeah, I don't think it did change. And I got to take my hat off to you looking to solve problems or look for alternatives, look for new information back then, because that's really what gave us hope, because I shut down a bit more. So yeah, a lot of love and respect for that.
So, okay, it has been a long time going through different cycles, different treatments and whatnot.
To be clear, if you've had a semen analysis and weren't really shown how to read it, the free sperm analysis mastery session walks you through it step by step. It helps you understand what the numbers actually mean and how to track your improvement. You'll find it at thefertilityproject.life/free resources.
So how would you describe what it's been like for you emotionally during all these treatments? What in the earlier years, which you were basically just sitting, waiting for results of my surgeries and me having all these treatments while you're just waiting, right? In the beginning was fertility treatment, but not IVF, but surgeries and whatnot, right? And later on, then we had the different cycles. How was it for you? And has anything shifted in how you experience it from then to now?
Okay, that's a really big question. A lot has changed over those early years. Back then, I was more naive and more trusting. Now, I'm not very trusting And that itself presents a few issues when approaching new clinics, etc., which we have to do extremely soon. So that is one change. How I process emotions, how it's changed at first. As I said, I was quite naive. I was trusting and I would just pray that everything's going to be okay. And then there's kind of been this middle phase where we've gone through a number of different IVF clinics. And the more I knew I could make changes to my own body, the more that helped. The more I knew that we could both change lifestyle changes to our bodies, that has helped very much. And of course, what you can do specifically to help improve your fertility. That's still an ongoing journey. Your body is distinctly complicated, so always learning new stuff. Now I feel like I know what I want. I know what questions to ask the IVF clinics. I know what's important for us. I know that there's options when it comes to our budget. This has obviously gone on for longer than we would have wanted it to and predicted, but I'm aware there's different options, different clinics in different countries have different costs. So the fact that I've learned that there's more choice and flexibility within this process, not just with our own fertility and developing that, but in terms of how to execute the IVF treatment that we want, that's been really good. Albeit I feel more anger now because when a clinic messes up, I know they've messed up. And I mean, that's why we're moving on from our previous clinic. So whereas I didn't feel anger before, I just felt, I would pray and then feel despair or defeated or sad after something didn't work. So yeah, those are the big swings, I'd say.
Well, anger is usually better because anger leads you to take action. So I guess better, isn't it? So my next question is, have there been moments where you questioned if this emotional, financial, or time investment in IVF is worth it? And how do you hold those doubts alongside hope if you have ever thought of it? This has been some time you like, is this actually worth it? There's so much money, emotion, time we're putting into this.
I think you asked me questions like that before, and my response was, I want to have children with you, you're my wife, you're the love of my life, etc. And this is how I want things to be, so we're going to work towards that. Having said that, we have had some help in order to pay for IVF clinics. It hasn't just been, there's so much support that has made our journey possible. Not everyone's going to have that. And so I think that's why, because I had resources available to support our journey, I didn't need to think like that. I'm very blessed. Only recently had I thought to myself, even the concept, the idea of, looking back, I was like, oh, we could have just not continued. And then I could have found someone else and had a family. Only recently had I even thought of, oh, that could have been an option open to me. Because that option, but it holds, and I say it, this isn't no regret or anything crazy like that. This is me just saying that, oh, I didn't know that was an opportunity. That was a possibility because I was so stuck in my, I was in the car with you and we were traveling to the same destination. You know what I mean? We're the team, we're doing it. And I didn't entertain or think about anything like that. You were asking me things like, are you sure you want to stay with me and stuff like that? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. So I don't think it was a test. I think sometimes, you were asking me like a genuine question. Yeah, only recently have I realized that was an option back then. But yeah, that's pretty much my answer.
Okay, now you have opened the can of worms there. So if you knew that there was an option before, would that be something you would entertain? I reckon there are men out there that might be like, you know what? If having a family is really important for me, it's really hard with you. I just want to break this up and find someone new. Because, on Quora, you find so many weird questions of people looking for, I don't know, I'm not even going to say what questions were those. But there are men out there that are like, okay, you can't have children. I'll go and find someone else. Whilst you have others that are like, I don't want to have children. How can I find someone that is infertile? So obviously, these are two opposite sides of crazy questions out there that you can see. But yeah, let's entertain the idea.
So, guys, if you're still with us at this point, know that these conversations can easily happen inside your own home. And so I hope this prepares you for those times. So if I had known it was an option, would you have done it? Is that what you're asking me? I'm not really too sure how to answer that because I think that the fact that I didn't acknowledge that that was an option was a reflection of my mindset and commitment to you. and also my character. So you're, in a sense, asking me, if you were a different person, would you have broken up with me? You know what I mean? And I'm not really interested in answering that question because I'm not, I wouldn't be a different person. But I'm coming through, am I? So yeah, that's the answer I would give. But I know that when you were doing a lot of endometriosis coaching and life coaching and stuff like that with women who were suffering from chronic diseases, and that is something that would come up, which is that, oh, my husband has decided that actually we can't have kids, so therefore we're going to break up. And so not only do they have like the realization that they've got to deal with it, they're not going to have their own, children, but they're also left as well. So it's a very low place to be in. And yeah, that's a hard one. But I would encourage other men not to jump the gun upon hearing about someone being labeled as infertile or that there are no other options, etc. Because the world of fertility is so broad. There's an array of different things that can be looked at. I mean, the amount of technology that's going into it. This problem isn't going away, and companies are only pumping more money into research and looking to expand the IVF clinics, businesses, etc. You've even got third-party DNA being introduced in order to help development of fetuses. You've got a whole range of things going on, and there's a lot of moral and ethical arguments to kind of be made, but there's a lot of stuff coming. So I just say for men, don't jump the gun. Know that there's a lot of options out there. If anyone's beginning to feel like they're in that kind of situation where they have to choose, it's like a woman. Like if a woman says, "Oh, this man isn't ready to have a child," then I've kind of got to make a decision about, do I stay or do I leave? If men are in that kind of situation, do I stay or do I leave because I want to have a family? Then I would just say, make sure you explore your options, because the love of your life will only come around once. So, back to you.
I wonder how would that go, a date to find someone to just have children and be like, so do you have any chronic illnesses?
I don't know.
It becomes like a medical appointment more than anything. So anyways, next question. What are your biggest worries in this journey? The ones that it's like any worries that you have in the background, or you're pretty chill and calm about our journey so far, and what are your biggest worries right now?
Before definitely despairing about money, I also began to feel like, oh, okay, well, we might not be able to have children. And not even that. We might not be able to create embryos. We can't conceive because, of course, miscarriage, pregnancy, that's a whole nother trip. So just getting to embryos, I don't even know if we can do that. So those are the two biggest fears. And I think a big fear is having to reshape what your future looks like. If you can't conceive with your wife, what happens next? And you have to face that possibility and face kind of plan that you have to make. And putting that off, or that thought process off, that was also, I had a fear of addressing that as well.
So my next question is more towards your side, and obviously with time and aging, your stats change. And I have not felt that a lot of that was shared with me. I don't know if you were trying to save me from more worries or whatnot, but how do you feel about sharing things like test results or emotional reactions with me regarding your own tests? And are there reasons that sometimes it feels easier to hold things back and not say anything?
I think sometimes, first of all, if everything was fine. That was my attitude at the beginning, just being told by the doctor what is good and what is bad. I know we've had this discussion about when I was first diagnosed with asthenozoospermia, which is when motility is low. I didn't have too much fear about that because I was experimenting quite aggressively with a number of different things, including prioritizing DNA fragmentation or DNA quality, basically within the sperm more than anything else, because we were going through IVF and therefore additional aid can be provided to the sperm so that they can swim well. But I do remember on one sperm analysis result, which was they saw that my sperm motility was continuing to decrease and that they recommended cryopreservation. I'm very certain I shared that with you, but you don't remember. So it's hard for me to answer because I also remember showing you that my stats were also in the red when it came to motility, albeit at first not by much. So it wasn't really a concern. It was just, oh, okay, well, it's not looking too good there. So sharing things with you. I always took my results with a pinch of salt as well, because I was experimenting so much with different things. So I never really knew if it was because I'm aging, albeit a lot did change quite quickly, really, just a couple of years. Yeah, so I thought it was a lot of the problems with my sperm was because I was experimenting with it and finding out what worked and what didn't. However, the cryopreservation suggestion, that definitely struck me as a big deal. And, I've said it before, I say it again, they didn't even bring it up in the doctor's appointment. You wouldn't have known anything.
Yeah, the doctors never said anything, never even touched the topic, nothing. Usually it's just like, you're the problem here, lady. Yeah. That's all the conversation we have to have here. And yeah, in a way, let's say, because I'm the problem one, the bigger problem, does that then affect on, how do I phrase this? Makes you less worried about your side? Because we know I have the most issues.
Well, no. I worry about my side quite a lot, because I think I know that if my side is poor as well as your side being poor, then that's a really bad situation to be in. So I must be in the best possible condition so that your eggs don't have to do any of the work in terms of repairing my DNA strands when they look to fertilize your egg. So I feel pressure. Like, I know I have to improve my sperm as much as possible. That's what I feel. I feel that belief, commitment, pressure. Yeah, in order for that. Hey man, I know why you're listening to this channel. And my guess is you're looking for a clear path forward. Just want to briefly mention something we've built for men who want more clarity, structure, and control over their fertility. It's a course called Male Fertility Mastery. It's grounded in evidence-based fertility research and what I've applied and refined over more than 4 years navigating my own fertility journey. Not theory, but my own lived experience. It hasn't just worked for me, it's helped a lot of other men improve their sperm health too. This course shows you how to meaningfully improve sperm health over a 3-month period. It's built around how sperm actually change and organizes what matters into clear, practical steps you can follow to transform your own fertility. We focus on understanding your sperm markers, improving them through evidence-based habits, and removing the guesswork so you're not, say, jumping from supplement to supplement. The goal isn't more information. It's a clear plan you can actually follow. The first module is available to explore, so you can see how it's structured before committing, and it comes with a 100% no-hassle money-back guarantee, so there's no pressure to continue if you're dissatisfied in any way. If you want to take a proper look, you can find it at thefertilityproject.life/MFM course. That's thefertilityproject.life/MFM course.
So how, like the decline of certain aspects on your stats, how does it impact you? Like how do you feel about it? Your mental aspect, your mind aspect of it, your perception of it. How does that feel? And would there be ways for us to make it easier for you to talk about it? Is that something we should proactively talk about during doctor's appointment, because they're not going to talk about it?
Again, it's a deceptively concise question, but actually there's a lot to it. So I was always used to being ignored throughout this process. And I don't think that's uncommon for men. And I think women get overburdened with a lot of focus. Not to say that it's not important to focus on the woman, but I believe there's an incorrect dynamic going on there. So I've always been used to being ignored within this baby making process. And I'm quite certain that's not going to stop once you get pregnant and we go through that process. So I think a trap that you fall into is feeling defeated and throwing your hands up in the air when you're not pulled into the process, when you don't feel like you're part of the process or a solution or anything like that. And I think that affects your mental health massively. I only really started acknowledging, actually I'm going to quickly mention one thing, which is that when we went through our cycle in the UK, we did 2 cycles, one failed, like we didn't do egg collection, and then one failed egg collection. There was a counseling service that was kind of offered within that package that we bought. And that was pretty good. I remember feeling pretty good coming out of it because we asked the questions we were able to form and ask the questions concisely, and then we could go about discussing them in the house. So I think that was very good. Therapists can be good and bad, right? But that one was good. Now, if we fast forward from then up until January 25 and going through that dual stimulation, the kind of first quarter of that year, it did hit me with actually how much like all this IVF stuff was like just dragging in the back of my mind, like how much time and energy was being spent on this, and I had taken it for granted because it was just all I had known for. It had become normal for the last 3 years before that. So that's when it kind of hit me that, yeah, it has actually affected me, and I had never acknowledged it. So after that, we obviously took a break, and that's helped me a lot. And I mean, take a break from IVF, guys, all right? Don't get confused. So yeah, so that's been good. And we've had a lot of important conversations, a lot of looking in the mirror as well. So it had affected me. I mean, there was obviously loads of stuff going on in between then as well in my personal life. So yeah, it all got to quite a lot. And I think just talking with friends was probably what helped me the most. Yeah, I'd say. Because that was tough.
So you think it's probably easier to, either having a counseling appointment where the person creates that space, or basically having an understanding friend group that can create that space where you feel free to dive into how things are going with you on a deeper level?
So I think there's considerations in both areas, because friends who have not gone through IVF, and that's the majority of them, we are the minority of people going through IVF, not only because it's costly, as well as people having infertility issues as well. So your friends can listen and they can understand, but there were times where I was just trying to explain fundamental things going on, or what I perceived as fundamental within IVF, and it just went over their heads. So they meant well, and they did a lot for me, listening to me. I really needed that, and it was fantastic. I mean, it's not a trade-off, but the thing that was lacking was understanding firsthand experience, which is why I always encourage people to make friends who have, if they're going through IVF or having fertility issues, to talk to people who have gone through it. The issue is the fertility journey for everyone is so vastly different. You're not going to get necessarily people who are going to fully understand and get you. Counseling, I think you've got to be careful, because in the UK, to be a counselor or a therapist, you don't need any kind of formal qualification. So what you get is, you don't know what you're going to get. You have to do your research and find out acknowledged and recognized therapists on reputable websites, rather than just finding one. So there is that kind of pitfall. But I would say and people's needs are going to be different. If you need, because we went for a couples appointment, if you need single, that's fine. If you think your wife needs it, that's also fine. I'm also vastly aware that there's going to be a financial cost to what I'm saying here. In addition, for example, in the US, what you can have will be dictated by your insurance package. So there's a lot of these complications to consider. But I would say that just that one counseling session alone at that time, when we were just confused and feeling upset, confused, scared, that was important. Just that one alone. And the reason why I haven't wanted to do more is because my frustrations have been more with clinics, doctors, etc. since then.
Okay, my next question, I think this is just the one before the last question. How has this journey impacted your well-being over the years? So mentally, emotionally, physically, and what have been the biggest stressors for you?
It's quite hard to separate all the things that have happened and just look at the IVF story, because although the IVF story does become your life, other things are going on. So for example, family members passing away, we left the UK and we moved, like in the last year that we were there, last 18 months, we lived in 3 different houses, and that was very stressful. So it's hard to quantify. So when you ask, how does the IVF journey impact my well-being? I would say actually it made it harder to deal with everything else that was going on. That's one thing. It's like, I've had a family member pass away, and I'm having to fly between countries to go to the hospital. to not only support, but also knowing that time is coming to an end. And I needed to like really milk those last times to sort of just be with her before she passed away. So it was kind of like a barrier or an obstacle to dealing with all the other stuff going on in my life. It was like, yeah, like another pillar that was present. So I think the fact that it's just there and being worked on when you've got all these other demands of life around you, that's hard in itself. Like that affects where your mind's at as well. And fortunately we were able to take a break, but if we had to have continued going on through IVF as I was grieving, you know, I mean, that situation was all of this was taking a toll on our relationship as well. You know, there was a lot of unhappiness. So I think upon reflection, it's hard because it's like you're constantly trying to, you know, it's like you're trying to carry stuff around on your back, right? And it's all the stuff that is entailed in life, death, moving from one place to another, navigating issues, job, what, you know, whatever it is. And then you've also got this fridge on your back, which you're trying to lug around, which is IVF. You know, that's kind of how I would say. So I would say it did affect me a lot, actually. I never knew until recently how much it had affected me. And it's affected me so much that I want to devote part of my life to helping others with it. So that's my answer.
My last question. Looking back, are there things you wish you had understood earlier in this journey? And if you could offer one lesson to other couples starting out and other men, what would it be?
I think my answer is always going to be the same with that, which is that you need to become more aware. And I'm going to use the term wisen up, not as, I think people, when they say that, it's usually in the context of you need to wisen up because your head isn't sorted out. It's more like you just literally need to get some wisdom. You need to accelerate the accumulation of wisdom when it comes to IVF. What does that mean? It means, as I said, talk to those who have walked the path before you, who have done IVF. It means talking to 4 different doctors right from the outset and always get as many opinions as possible rather than just plodding through one IVF clinic every single time. You might stay with the clinic for 1 year, the next year stay with another, the next year stay with another. But actually it's about being vigilant and understanding that these doctors, they will provide different nuggets of information at different times. I would say also be curious as well about your own biology. Understand how easy it is to influence things. Get interested in your own health, your wife's health, your life, like how you live your life day in, day out, your habits that can support the best possible you. I would say looking at these, I believe I mentioned 3 things, are imperative to having a much faster, not just acceleration and accumulation of the knowledge you need so that you can make more informed decisions earlier and faster, but you'll just feel better as well. Like if you're in the driver's seat, you'll just feel better. And if you're looking after your health as well, of course, you're going to feel better. Prioritizing that, it's a form of self-love, you know, the way it shapes your habits in the house, quality of time and stuff in the house. Oh, and another one, your relationship. You have to, it is just stick to a date night or stick to an intimacy night or something like that, because, you know, I still mess up with that now, but every time I do, I regret it, you know, but that has to be a priority. And you got to talk to your wife about as much as possible. That's not always easy because sometimes you try to communicate something and then your other half will feel judged. And that wasn't the intention at all. You know, you just wanted to voice some thoughts, which is why sometimes counseling or something like that can be a good option, because you're in a space where you can throw out those thoughts and then begin to form those questions better within your relationship.
That was the last question. Any last things you want to say? I guess we can close off.
Yeah, I just hope everyone I hope this kind of indicates that if you are having these thoughts, you're not alone, guys. If you understand that you're going to have to go through IVF, or you've been told that you're going to have to go through IVF, I would say, again, always seek out as much information as possible. Don't think you have to commit to it straight away. Unless you have, of course, a very serious matter and medical issues. Of course, then you most definitely need to listen to your doctor. But this also gives you an idea of what's coming as well to those entering IVF. So with that, much love from the both of us. And we'll see you in the next episode.
All the love and lots of babies in the future for everyone.